The cold pizza tasted like cardboard, but at midnight in my own kitchen, I wasn't exactly expecting gourmet cuisine. I'd given up on sleep hours ago, another side effect of the back injury that had derailed everything I thought I knew about my life. The doctor's words still echoed in my head. No more construction work, Jack. Your spine can't handle it. That was 6 months ago. 6 months of watching my wife Tara's career soar, while mine crumbled like the foundation of a house built on sand. The argument upstairs had been going on for 20 minutes. Tara and our 16-year-old daughter Emily were at it again, their voices carrying through the thin walls of our fixer-upper home in Milltown. This place had been my pride and joy once, a 1920s colonial that I'd been slowly restoring with my own hands. Now it felt more like a prison, every creaky floorboard a reminder of projects I'd never finish. "Mom, you can't keep pretending everything's fine." Emily's voice cut through the silence like a knife. "Everyone at school knows about you and Mike." My hand froze halfway to my mouth, pizza slice suspended in midair. Mike Peterson, my former best friend, the guy who'd stood as best man at my wedding 15 years ago. "That's none of your business," Tara snapped back. "And it's certainly not something you should be discussing at school. Face it, Mom, Dad's not a real man anymore. Mike's got a six-pack, Dad's got 6 chins. Maybe he should just disappear and make it easier for everyone." The pizza hit my plate with a wet slap. I sat there in the dark, processing what I'd just heard. My own daughter, my own flesh and bone. "Emily, that's enough," Tara said, but her tone lacked conviction, like she didn't entirely disagree. I pushed back from the kitchen table, the chair legs scraping against the linoleum floor I'd installed myself 3 years ago. The sound seemed to echo through the house, and the voices upstairs went quiet. "Guess that's my cue to start a juice cleanse or plan a homicide," I muttered to myself, but the joke fell flat in the empty kitchen. The truth was, I'd suspected something was going on for weeks. Tara had been working late more often, her phone constantly buzzing with texts she'd quickly hide when I walked into the room. She'd started going to the gym again, not to spend time with me, but to focus on herself. Her words, and Mike, good old Mike Peterson, who owned the used car lot on Route 9. He'd been coming around more often, always with some excuse about needing contractor advice or wanting to catch up on old times. But his eyes never quite met mine anymore, and he had this guilty smile that made my skin crawl. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step sending a dull ache through my lower back. The hallway was dark, but I could see light spilling out from under Emily's bedroom door. Tara's silhouette was visible in the doorway. "Your father's going through a difficult time," she was saying, "but that doesn't mean we stop caring about him." "Do you still care about him?" Emily asked. "Because it sure doesn't look like it from where I'm sitting." There was a long pause. I held my breath, waiting for Tara's response. "It's complicated, honey. Marriage isn't always easy. Sometimes people grow apart. So you're getting divorced?" Another pause. Longer this time. "I don't know, maybe. Would that bother you?" "Honestly, no. You guys make each other miserable. And Mike makes you happy, I can see it." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. My own daughter was giving her mother permission to destroy our family. And Tara was listening. I backed away from the door and retreated to the master bedroom. Our bedroom, though it hadn't felt like ours in months. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the framed photo on the nightstand. Our wedding day, both of us young and stupid and convinced we'd conquer the world together. Tara had been a secretary at a small real estate office then. Now she was the top agent at Milltown Realty, driving a BMW and wearing designer clothes that cost more than I used to make in a month. Success looked good on her. It made her confident, sharp, almost predatory. It also made her cruel. The bedroom door opened, and Tara walked in, not bothering to look at me as she headed for the bathroom. "How much of that did you hear?" she asked, her reflection meeting my eyes in the mirror. "Enough." She nodded like she'd expected this moment would come eventually. "Jack, we need to talk." "Do we? Sounds like you and Emily have already made all the decisions." She turned around then, and I saw something in her face I'd never seen before. Not anger or frustration or even guilt. It was pity. "Look at yourself," she said quietly. "Really look. When's the last time you shaved? When's the last time you left this house for something other than a doctor's appointment? You're 42 years old and you've given up. I had a career-ending injury. I'm dealing with chronic pain. I'm trying to figure out what comes next. It's been 6 months, Jack. 6 months of you sitting in that kitchen, eating junk food, and feeling sorry for yourself. Meanwhile, I'm working 60-hour weeks to keep us afloat financially. I never asked you to do that. You didn't have to ask. Someone had to step up. She paused, studying my face. Mike thinks you're depressed. He's worried about you. The mention of his name made my hands clench into fists. Mike can go to heck. He's trying to be a friend. Is that what we're calling it? Tara's face flushed red. What's that supposed to mean? You tell me. You're the one sneaking around, taking mysterious phone calls, working late with the door locked. I'm building a career, something you might not understand anymore. The words hit like a physical blow. I stood up slowly, my back protesting the movement. You're right, I said. I don't understand a lot of things anymore, like how my wife became someone I don't recognize. Or how my best friend started looking at my wife like she's already available. You're being paranoid. Am I? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like everyone in my life has decided I'm a burden. Even my own daughter thinks I should disappear. Tara's expression softened slightly. Emily's 16. She doesn't understand adult relationships. And what about you? Do you understand our relationship? She was quiet for a long moment, and in that silence I got my answer. I think, she said finally, we both need some space to figure out what we want. Space, right. I nodded slowly. How much space are we talking about? Because Mike's car lot is only 2 miles away. Her face went white. Jack, save it. I'm not blind, Tara. Stupid, maybe. Depressed, definitely. But not blind. I walked past her toward the door, then stopped. You want to know what I want? I want my wife back. I want my best friend back. I want my daughter to look at me with something other than disgust. But it seems like I'm the only one interested in fighting for any of that. Maybe some things aren't worth fighting for anymore. I turned to look at her one last time. She was standing in front of the mirror again, but this time she was looking at herself, not at me. You're probably right, I said, but I guess we'll find out. I left her there and went downstairs to the couch. It wouldn't be the first time I'd slept there, and something told me it wouldn't be the last. But as I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Not hope. I wasn't that naive. It was something sharper, more focused. It was anger. And for the first time since my injury, anger felt like something I could use. I woke up on the couch with a crick in my neck and the taste of stale pizza in my mouth. The morning light streaming through the living room windows felt harsh and unforgiving, like everything else in my life lately. Tara was already gone. Her BMW wasn't in the driveway, and I could hear Emily getting ready for school upstairs. The coffee maker was cold, which meant Tara hadn't bothered to make any before she left. Another small but telling detail in the growing pile of evidence that our marriage was circling the drain. I made my own coffee and sat at the kitchen table trying to organize my thoughts. The conversation from last night played on repeat in my head, each word cutting deeper than the last. But underneath the hurt and humiliation, that spark of anger was still burning. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. How are you feeling, honey? Haven't heard from you in a few days. Maureen Sullivan was 72 years old and tougher than a $2 steak. She'd raised 3 boys as a single mother after my father died in a construction accident when I was 12. If anyone could smell trouble from a mile away, it was her. I typed back, I'm fine, Mom, just dealing with some stuff. Her response came immediately. Bees, come over for lunch. We need to talk. Emily clattered down the stairs, backpack slung over her shoulder, not bothering to look at me as she grabbed a granola bar from the counter. Dad, can you drive me to school? Mom already left. It was the first time she'd spoken directly to me in days, and even then it was just because she needed something. Sure, I said, grabbing my keys from the hook by the door. The drive to Milltown High was awkward and silent. Emily stared out the window, earbuds in, making it clear that conversation wasn't welcome. But as I pulled up to the drop-off zone, she surprised me by taking out one earbud. Dad? Yeah? Are you and Mom getting divorced? The question hung in the air between us. I could have lied, could have given her some platitude about how adults sometimes go through rough patches. Instead, I decided to be honest. I don't know, Em, that seems to be up to your mother. She nodded like this confirmed something she'd already suspected. For what it's worth, she said, I don't really think you should disappear. That was a crappy thing to say. Language, I said automatically, but I was smiling. Sorry, that was a crappy thing to say. Better, and thanks. That means a lot. She got out of the car, then leaned down to look at me through the passenger window. Dad, maybe try to fight for us a little bit. Mom acts tough, but she's not as sure about everything as she pretends to be. Then she was gone, disappearing into the crowd of teenagers flooding through the school's front doors. I sat there for a moment, processing what she'd said. Maybe Emily wasn't as lost to me as I'd thought. My phone rang. The caller ID showed Mike Peterson's name, and for a second I considered letting it go to voicemail. But curiosity won out. Hey, Mike. Jack, how are you feeling, buddy? His voice had that overly cheerful quality that people use when they're trying too hard to sound normal. I'm fine. What's up? Well, I was wondering if you might want to grab lunch today. Catch up, you know? It's been too long since we really talked. The irony wasn't lost on me. Mike wanted to have lunch on the same day my mother had summoned me. It was like the universe was conspiring to make this day as complicated as possible. Actually, I'm having lunch with my mom today. Rain check? Oh, sure. How about dinner then? We could go to the Rusty Nail, shoot some pool like old times. The Rusty Nail was our old hangout, a dive bar on the outskirts of town where we'd spent countless nights in our 20s, playing pool and talking about our dreams for the future. The thought of going there with Mike now, knowing what I knew, made my stomach turn. Let me get back to you on that, I said. Everything okay, Jack? You sound a little, I don't know, distant. Just tired. You know how it is. Yeah, I do. Listen, if you ever need to talk about anything, and I mean anything, you know I'm here for you, right? We've been friends for 20 years. That has to count for something. The sincerity in his voice almost made me laugh. Here was my best friend, the guy who was sleeping with my wife, offering to be my shoulder to cry on. The audacity was breathtaking. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate that. After I hung up, I sat in the school parking lot for a few more minutes, watching the normal suburban morning unfold around me. Parents dropping off kids, teachers hurrying in with coffee cups and lesson plans, the crossing guard waving at familiar faces, everyone going about their normal lives while mine fell apart. But maybe that was the problem. Maybe I'd been too passive, too willing to let things happen to me instead of taking control. I drove across town to my mother's house, a small Cape Cod in the older section of Milltown. She was waiting for me on the front porch, arms crossed, wearing the expression that had struck fear into the hearts of 3 Sullivan boys for decades. You look like heck, she said by way of greeting. Good morning to you too, Mom. Don't get smart with me. Come inside. I made sandwiches. Her kitchen smelled like coffee and the lavender soap she'd been using for as long as I could remember. She'd set the table for 2, with thick turkey sandwiches and homemade potato salad. It was the kind of meal that reminded me why I'd never learned to cook properly. Why bother when Mom did it so much better? So, she said, settling into her chair across from me, what's really going on with you and Tara? I should have known she'd cut straight to the heart of it. Maureen Sullivan had never been one for small talk. What makes you think something's going on? Jack Michael Sullivan, I changed your diapers. I know when you're lying. She took a bite of her sandwich and studied my face. Plus, Dolores Martinelli saw Tara having dinner with Mike Peterson at that fancy Italian place in Springfield last week. Looked pretty cozy, according to Dolores. Of course, in a town like Milltown, secrets had a shelf life of about 5 minutes. How long have people been talking? Long enough. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I set down my sandwich, suddenly not hungry anymore. I don't know. What can I do? If she wants to be with him instead of me, maybe I should just let her go. Mom's fork clattered against her plate. Let her go? Are you out of your mind? That woman has been living in the house you restored with your own hands, driving a car you helped her buy, building a career while you supported her every step of the way. And now that you're going through a rough patch, she's ready to throw it all away for some sleazy car salesman? Mike Peterson is a snake in a cheap suit, and he always has been. I never liked him, and I told you so when you first brought him around. But you were 18 and thought you knew everything. She was right about that. Mike had always been a little too smooth, a little too quick with the charm. But he'd been loyal, or so I'd thought. We'd been through everything together. High school, college, my wedding, the birth of my daughter, my father-in-law's funeral. 20 years of friendship, and he'd thrown it away for what? A few nights with my wife? Even if you're right about Mike, I said, that doesn't change the fact that Tara doesn't want to be married to me anymore. Has she said that? Not in so many words, but it's pretty clear. Clear to who? You? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've decided to give up without a fight. I'm not giving up. I'm being realistic. Realistic? Mom's voice rose an octave. You want to know what's realistic? Realistic is that marriage is work. It's not some fairy tale where everything is perfect all the time. It's choosing to love someone, even when they're being difficult, even when they're not at their best. What if they've stopped choosing you? She was quiet for a moment, and I could see her working through her thoughts. Then you remind them why they chose you in the first place. You fight for what's yours. You don't just roll over and give up. And how exactly am I supposed to do that? I can't compete with Mike Peterson. He's got money, he's in shape, he's not dealing with chronic pain and depression. So that's it? You're just going to let him win? The word win hit me like a slap. Because that's what this was, wasn't it? A competition. And I'd been sitting on the sidelines while Mike Peterson ran up the score. What would you do? I asked. If you were in my position, what would you do? A slow smile spread across her face, and for a moment I could see the young woman who'd raised 3 boys alone, who'd worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table, who'd never backed down from a fight in her life. I'd make them both regret the day they decided to mess with a Sullivan. After lunch, I drove home with Mom's words echoing in my head. The house was empty. Emily wouldn't be home from school for hours, and Tara was probably showing houses to clients or doing whatever it was she did during her long workdays. I walked through the rooms slowly, really looking at them for the first time in months. The hardwood floors I'd refinished myself, the kitchen cabinets I'd built from scratch, the bathroom I'd gutted and renovated when Emily was 10. This wasn't just a house. It was a testament to 15 years of my life, 15 years of building something with the woman I loved. And she was ready to throw it all away. I climbed the stairs to our bedroom and opened Tara's closet. Her clothes were organized by color and season, everything neat and precise. But there, hanging behind her winter coats, was something that didn't belong. A men's jacket, expensive leather, too small to be mine. I pulled it out and checked the pockets. A receipt from Romano's, the fancy Italian restaurant in Springfield, the same one where Dolores Martinelli had seen Tara and Mike together. The date was from last week. My hands were shaking as I folded the jacket and put it back where I'd found it. But I took a picture of the receipt with my phone first. Evidence. If this was going to be a war, I needed ammunition. The receipt from Mike's jacket burned in my mind all afternoon. I'd stared at it so many times that I'd memorized every detail. Romano's restaurant, table for 2, 1 bottle of wine, 2 entrees, 1 dessert they'd shared. Total bill. $127 paid for with Mike's credit card. It was proof of what I already knew, but seeing it in black and white made it real in a way that hurt more than I'd expected. By the time Tara came home that evening, I'd made a decision. Not about divorce or reconciliation or any of the big picture stuff. I wasn't ready for that yet. But about the jacket, about the lies, about the way they thought I was too stupid or too broken to notice what was happening right under my nose. "How was your day?" she asked, setting her purse on the kitchen counter. She was wearing a new dress I'd never seen before, dark blue with a fitted waist that showed off the figure she'd been working so hard at the gym to maintain. "Interesting," I said. "Had lunch with Mom. She mentioned that Dolores Martinelli saw you at Romano's last week." Tara's hand froze on the refrigerator door handle. For just a second, her mask slipped, and I saw something that might have been panic flash across her face. Oh, it was a business dinner. I was showing the Hendersons some properties in Springfield, and we stopped for a late lunch. The Hendersons, new clients, they're relocating from Boston. Very high-end budget. She was good. I had to give her that. The lie came so smoothly, with just enough detail to sound plausible. Must have been some lunch. Mom said it looked pretty romantic. Well, Dolores Martinelli needs to mind her own business, and maybe get her eyes checked while she's at it. Tara pulled a bottle of white wine from the refrigerator and poured herself a glass. She didn't offer me one. "Where's Emily?" she asked, clearly trying to change the subject. "Study group at Madison's house. She'll be home by 9. Good, I have some paperwork to catch up on anyway." She took her wine and headed upstairs to the home office we'd set up in what used to be a guest bedroom. I heard the door close and the lock click into place. I waited 10 minutes, then followed her upstairs. The office door was closed, but I could hear her voice through the thin wood. She was on the phone, speaking in the low, familiar tone she used to use with me. I know, but it's complicated. No, he doesn't suspect anything. I can't just leave, Mike. There are financial considerations. My heart pounded so hard I was sure she'd hear it through the door. Of course I want to be with you, but we have to be smart about this. Yes, I got your message about the weekend. I'll figure something out. I backed away from the door and went downstairs, my mind racing. A weekend getaway. They were planning a weekend getaway while I sat at home like an idiot, pretending everything was normal. The anger that had been simmering since last night suddenly boiled over. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. Mike's car lot was 15 minutes away, a small operation wedged between a tire shop and a Chinese restaurant on Route 9. The sign out front proclaimed, "Peterson's Pre-Owned Vehicles, Honest Deals for Honest People." The irony made me sick. I parked across the street and watched through the large windows as Mike moved around the small office, straightening papers and turning off lights. It was almost closing time. His pride and joy, a restored 1967 Mustang convertible in cherry red, was parked in the prime spot right in front of the building. He'd bought it at an auction 3 years ago and spent months getting it perfect. It was his baby, his midlife crisis on wheels. I waited until he locked up and drove away in his everyday car, a practical Honda that didn't match his flashy persona. Then I crossed the street. The key I'd had made from his spare, the one he'd given me years ago when we were still real friends, still worked. I let myself into the office and looked around. It was exactly what you'd expect from a used car salesman. Fake wood paneling, motivational posters, a desk covered in paperwork and coffee-stained contracts. But there, on the corner of his desk, was a framed photo that made my blood run cold. Mike and Tara at some restaurant, both of them laughing, her hand on his arm. They looked happy, comfortable, like a couple. I picked up the frame and stared at it for a long moment. When had this been taken? How long had this been going on? The photo went into my jacket pocket. Then I opened his desk drawers and started looking through them. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, but I'd know it when I found it. In the bottom drawer, underneath a stack of old invoices, I found a small gift box from Tiffany & Company. Inside was a necklace, white gold with a small diamond pendant, expensive, the kind of thing a man bought for a woman he was serious about. The receipt was in the box, purchased 2 weeks ago, $250. I put the necklace back in the drawer but kept the receipt, more evidence for the growing file in my head. But I wasn't done yet. I went outside to the Mustang. The car was Mike's most prized possession, the thing he cared about more than anything else in the world. He washed it every weekend, kept it covered during bad weather, and bragged about it to anyone who would listen. I took out my house key and looked at the pristine red paint job. For a moment, I hesitated. This would cross a line. Once I did this, there would be no going back. Then I thought about Tara's voice through the office door, the warmth in her tone when she spoke to him. I thought about the photo on his desk, the necklace in his drawer, the receipt from Romano's. I dragged the key along the driver's side door, carving the word cheater in deep, ugly scratches that went all the way down to the metal. It felt good, better than I'd felt in months. But I still wasn't done. I went back to my truck and got the bag of garbage I'd been meaning to take to the dump. Coffee grounds, old food, dirty paper towels, all the disgusting detritus of daily life. I carried it back to Mike's office, unlocked the door again, and dumped the entire contents across his desk, his chair, his precious motivational posters. The smell was immediate and overwhelming. It would take him hours to clean up, and the stench would linger for days. I locked the office door behind me and drove home, feeling more alive than I had since my injury. For the first time in months, I'd taken action instead of just letting things happen to me. Tara was in the kitchen when I got back, reheating leftovers in the microwave. "Where did you go?" she asked without looking up. "Just for a drive. Needed some air." "Well, Emily called. She's staying at Madison's tonight. Something about a big project they need to finish." "On a school night?" Tara shrugged. "She's 16. She can make her own decisions about her schoolwork." Or maybe Emily just didn't want to be in the house with the tension between her parents. Smart kid. We ate dinner in silence, both of us pretending to watch the news while actually avoiding eye contact. It was like living with a polite stranger. Around 10 o'clock, Tara's phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at it and I saw her face change. "Everything okay?" I asked. Fine, just work stuff. But her hands were shaking as she typed a response. My own phone buzzed a few minutes later. A text from Mike. Jack, I need to talk to you. Something happened at the lot tonight. Can you call me? I showed Tara the message. That's weird, she said, but her voice sounded strained. Wonder what happened. Probably just a break-in or something. You know how that neighborhood is. I didn't call Mike back. Instead, I went upstairs and got ready for bed, leaving Tara alone with her phone and whatever frantic messages she was probably exchanging with her lover. As I lay in bed waiting for her to come upstairs, I thought about what I'd done. The vandalism, the break-in, the theft of the photo. Any one of those things could get me in serious trouble if Mike decided to press charges. But somehow, I didn't think he would, because pressing charges would mean involving the police, and involving the police would mean questions. Questions about why someone might want to vandalize his car. Questions about his relationship with my wife. No, Mike would keep this between us, which was exactly what I wanted. Tara finally came to bed around midnight, slipping under the covers without a word. She lay with her back to me, as far away as she could get without falling off the mattress. Tara, I said quietly. What? Are you happy? She was quiet for so long that I thought she'd fallen asleep. Then she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know what happy means anymore. Do you want to try to figure it out together? Or have you already made up your mind about us? Another long silence. I think, she said finally, that we both need to be honest about what we want and what we're willing to fight for. You're right, I said. We do need to be honest. She rolled over to face me then, and in the dim light from the street lamp outside, I could see tears in her eyes. Jack, it's okay, I interrupted. You don't have to say anything tonight. But soon we're going to have to stop pretending that everything is fine, because it's not fine, and we both know it. She nodded and rolled back over. I lay awake for a long time after that, staring at the ceiling and thinking about lines crossed and bridges burned, about the difference between being a victim and being a villain, and about how good it had felt to fight back. I woke up the next morning to the sound of my phone ringing. Mike's name flashed on the screen, and for a moment I considered letting it go to voicemail. But curiosity won out. Morning, Mike. Jack, thank God. Listen, something really messed up happened last night. Someone broke into my office and trashed the place. And my Mustang. Someone keyed it. Bad. I made appropriate shocked noises while mentally reviewing my performance from the night before. Jesus, Mike, that's terrible. Did you call the police? Yeah, they came out and took a report. But between you and me, I don't think they're going to put a lot of effort into solving it. You know how it is with property crime. Any idea who might have done it? There was a pause. Well, that's actually why I'm calling. The cops asked if I had any enemies, anyone who might want to hurt my business. And I couldn't think of anyone. But then I started wondering, Jack, have you noticed anyone watching your house? Following you around, acting suspicious? No, why would you ask that? It's just, whoever did this, they had a key to my office. They knew exactly where everything was. It feels personal, like someone who knows me. I let that hang in the air for a moment before responding. That is weird. But Mike, why would someone who wanted to hurt you be watching my house? Another pause, longer this time. I don't know. Maybe I'm being paranoid. This whole thing has me rattled. I'm sure it does. Listen, if you want, I could come by later and help you clean up. Would you? That would be great, Jack. I could really use a friend right now. The irony was so thick I could have cut it with a knife. After I hung up, I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, thinking about my next move. Mike was scared, which was good. But he was also trying to figure out who had targeted him, which was potentially problematic. Tara came downstairs dressed for work, her hair and makeup perfect despite the emotional conversation we'd had the night before. She'd always been good at compartmentalizing, at keeping her professional face intact, no matter what was happening in her personal life. Emily's spending another night at Madison's, she announced, pouring herself coffee. Something about a group presentation. 2 nights in a row? She's a junior now. The workload is intense. Or Emily was avoiding the toxic atmosphere at home. Either way, it meant another evening of awkward silence between Tara and me. I'm going to be late tonight, Tara continued. I have a showing at 6, and then I need to finish some paperwork at the office. More paperwork? You've been doing a lot of that lately. She shot me a sharp look. It's called having a successful career, Jack. You might not remember what that feels like, but some of us are still working. The comment hit like a physical blow. 6 months ago, I would have absorbed it, would have taken the guilt and shame and added it to the growing pile in my chest. But something had changed since last night. The anger was still there, but it was colder now, more focused. You're right, I said calmly. I don't remember what success feels like, but I remember what loyalty feels like, and respect, and honesty. Funny how we both seem to be forgetting different things. She stared at me for a moment, coffee mug frozen halfway to her lips. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, just making conversation. She left without another word, and I spent the morning making phone calls. First to my mother, then to my old boxing coach at the gym across town. Ron Kowalski had been training fighters for 30 years. He was 68 years old, built like a fire hydrant, and had never met a problem he didn't think that could be solved with hard work and harder punches. I'd trained with him in high school and college, back when I thought I might have a future in amateur boxing. Jackie Sullivan, he said when I walked into the gym. Heard you were having some troubles. News travels fast. In this town? Heck, I knew about your wife and that car dealer before you did. Question is, what are you going to do about it? I looked around the gym. It was exactly the same as I remembered. Heavy bags hanging from the ceiling, speed bags rattling against their platforms, the smell of sweat and leather and determination. A few guys were working out, but none of them looked familiar. I was thinking maybe I'd start training again, get back in shape. Ron looked me up and down, taking in the extra weight around my middle, the way I favored my left side because of my back. You sure about that? You're not 22 anymore, and that back injury ain't gonna get better. I'm not looking to fight professionally. I just want to feel strong again. He nodded slowly. I can work with that. But I'm gonna push you hard, and I'm gonna tell you things you don't want to hear. You okay with that? I'm counting on it. Good. We start tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. And Jackie? Yeah? Whatever you're planning to do about your situation at home, make sure you think it through first. Anger makes you stupid, and stupid gets you in trouble. I left the gym feeling better than I had in weeks. For the first time since my injury, I had a plan that extended beyond just surviving each day. My next stop was Mike's car lot. I found him in his office on his hands and knees scrubbing coffee grounds out of the carpet. The smell was even worse than I'd hoped. Jesus, Mike, this is worse than I thought. He looked up at me with grateful eyes. Thanks for coming, Jack. I've been at this for 2 hours and I've barely made a dent. I helped him clean up the mess I'd made, all the while listening to him speculate about who might have done it. He was convinced it was either a disgruntled customer or maybe some kids from the high school playing a prank. The thing that really gets me, he said, spraying air freshener for the 4th time, is the personal nature of it. I mean, keying cheater into my car? What's that about? Maybe someone thinks you ripped them off on a deal? Maybe, but it feels like more than that, you know? It feels like someone really hates me. I made sympathetic noises while mentally cataloging his reactions. Mike was definitely rattled, but he wasn't connecting the vandalism to his affair with Tara. Yet. We worked for another hour, and by the time we were done, the office was clean but still smelled faintly of garbage. Mike would be reminded of this every time he walked through his door. I owe you big time, he said as we finished up. Let me buy you dinner. We can go to the Rusty Nail. Shoot some pool like old times. Actually, that sounds good. But can we make it tomorrow night? I've got some things to take care of tonight. Sure, absolutely, and Jack. Thanks again. I don't know what I would have done without you. The gratitude in his voice made me feel sick. This was my best friend of 20 years, and I was systematically destroying his peace of mind while pretending to help him. 6 months ago, the guilt would have eaten me alive. Now it just felt like justice. I spent the afternoon at the hardware store, buying supplies for a project I'd been putting off for months, replacing the rotted boards on our back deck. It was physical work that I could actually handle with my injury, and it would give me something to do with my hands while I planned my next move. Tara came home around 7, looking frazzled and tired. How was your day? I asked, not looking up from the deck board I was measuring. Long, complicated. The Hendersons are being difficult about the Springfield property. Another lie. I was starting to wonder if she even remembered what the truth looked like anymore. Well, hopefully you can get it sorted out soon. She went inside without responding, and I heard her on the phone a few minutes later, the same low, familiar tone she'd used last night. By 9 o'clock, I'd replaced 3 boards and was feeling pretty good about the progress. My back ached, but it was the good kind of ache that came from useful work. Tara appeared in the doorway with a glass of wine in her hand. That looks good, she said, gesturing at the deck. Thanks. Figured it was time to start taking care of the house again. Jack, about what I said this morning about your career. That was cruel. I'm sorry. I set down my hammer and looked at her. She seemed genuinely remorseful, which made what I was doing to her lover feel slightly less satisfying. We're both saying things we don't mean lately. I bid. Maybe we should try to be more careful with each other. She nodded and took a sip of her wine. I've been thinking about what you said last night, about being honest about what we want. And I think we should see a marriage counselor. Try to work through our problems with professional help. It was a reasonable suggestion. 6 months ago, it might have even worked. But now, knowing what I knew, it felt like another manipulation. A way to ease her guilt while she continued her affair. That's a good idea, I said. I'll look into it. She smiled for the first time in days, and for a moment she looked like the woman I'd fallen in love with 15 years ago. I'm going to take a bath and go to bed early, she said. This week has been exhausting. After she went inside, I sat on the deck steps and looked out at our backyard. The lawn needed cutting, the flower beds were overgrown with weeds, and the fence was starting to lean in places. Everything was falling apart, just like my marriage. But unlike my marriage, the yard could be fixed. It just required work and time and patience. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Stop what you're doing or things will get worse. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Someone knew what I'd done to Mike's car lot, but who and how? I typed back, "Who is this?" No response. I went inside and found Tara in the bathtub, surrounded by candles and bubbles, her eyes closed. She looked peaceful, innocent. Tara. She opened her eyes and looked at me. Did you give anyone my phone number recently? Anyone I wouldn't know? No, why? I got a weird text from an unknown number. Probably just spam. She nodded and closed her eyes again. I went to bed that night with my phone on the nightstand, waiting for another message, but none came. Instead, I lay awake thinking about enemies and allies, about the people who might want to protect Tara and Mike's secret, and about how much more complicated this was about to become.